Hunting is not easy. It never has been. It takes dedication, motivation, a lot of patience, and quality gear. If you manage a food plot, put up stands, or need just one more game camera, we can help at MidwayUSA.com. We opened our doors in 1977 and continue to put customers first by offering super fast, same-day shipping. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com. Midway USA has an extensive selection of bullets, providing top-notch performance and accuracy for the cartridge you plan on reloading. If you plan to hunt, shoot competitively, plink at the range, or even load up some self-defense rounds, Midway USA has the popular brands, calibers, diameters, and grain weights of bullets you are searching for. First-time reloaders, bulk bullet buyers, and seasoned specialty shooters begin their search for bullets at Midway USA. For just about everything for reloading, shop MidwayUSA.com.
Sitting up there jacked with Pepsi.
I'm there for the pack out. You just got to pack me in.
Committed to the bow early on. Like, I love getting close and putting up.
You cover a range of stuff on here too, right? Like,
we call this the THP World Headquarters.
You know, my grandpa Roy Weatherby.
I came into like that golden little pocket where there was like 4 or 5 different bowls. Just.
You're Canadian? We're doing a Canadian podcast.
My name's Douglas Bode.
I'm Robbie Denning.
Roy Cambridge.
Stuff out of this one. The last one, we didn't even get it to any of the good elk stuff. So
I know it's. I'll try to stay on. I'll try to stay on focus this time. No rabbit holes. No rabbit holes.
Yeah. Okay. So Mark, thanks for hopping on the show again, buddy.
Yeah, man. Good to be back on.
So like we were talking about, we're gonna do a 4-part mini series, and basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna dive into your program. First of all, where people can find it, how they get access to it, and then we're kind of going to work through the modules. And basically what we want to do is we want to get people looking for elk spots now, not middle of August when it's already, that time you can actually you should have your spot e-scouted. Maybe if you get a little time, a weekend here or there, take the family out, do some actual boots on the ground scouting. So obviously you've been on the show lots. Everybody knows who you are. And even if you weren't on the show, everybody would know who you are anyway. So let's just start with talking about Treeline, where we can find it, how we get access, and then working into the program.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on. I always love doing these little mini series because, a lot of these podcasts, and a lot of this information gets out there. You get surface level stuff and you don't really get to get into the weeds very much, but so many people message me all the time. And Mark, I love the fact that you go into all this detail, and sometimes the detail gets long and it gets drawn out, but it's important part of what you're doing. And when you just kind of surface level stuff, I don't think people always get where they want to go. So anyway, thanks for the introduction. So last year I made a consolidation to one platform. I used to have treelinepursuits.com. I used to have my llamas were on a different site. So I just redid all of my stuff now is at treelineacademy.net. All the courses are there. The bear tour that we're doing, my llama rental stuff is there. Even my apparel stuff, shop stuff, everything's under one umbrella now. So it's a lot easier for people to find if they're looking for course information or podcasts. All the podcasts that I've ever done, including all the focus podcasts, are all there in chronological order with a description so you can kind of search and kind of look through them. I'm trying to make it easy for people to get all the content that we've been working on for, the past 3 to 4 years. And so, you can find everything there.
Beauty.
Awesome.
Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to bring the screen up here. So actually, before I bring the screen up, let's talk about just membership. So it's a 2-year, you get in, you have access for 2 years, right?
Right. So, and that's funny you said that, because what happened originally was the course is over 30 hours and it's 50 modules. So a lot of guys and women, let's just be honest, let's just use the word people. A lot of the people that end up taking my course way underestimate how long it's going to take them to work through it. Right. And so I I don't feel, I don't feel that you can really grasp, especially if you're a new hunter. You almost have to apply these principles and go out and just do it. And then I think the real benefit is that coming back and going through again and your second year, like when you've got some experience under your belt, you've got a little bit of backcountry knowledge. Now you're tying it in with some of this elk finding information. I think that the aha moment, or the people that when people's eyes are really opened, is really the second year. And so I hate 1 year subscriptions. I hate subscriptions anyway. But I have to do something. So I set it to 2 years. And even after that, I got people renewing. I do a 50% renewal. So I try to make it where it's really cost effective for, if you need more than 2 years, then we'll make it happen. And I am finding quite a few that want to do after the 2 years, but 2 years gives you 2 full seasons to work through it. So that was an important part of what my original plan was, that I want to give people time to try it out, look through it, go on a hunt, and then come back and kind of almost do it again at a higher level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely does.
That's so funny, Mark. That's exactly what I did. I took your course. You use all your apps, you start planning a couple of hunts, and then when you get boots on the ground, you start connecting the dots of, okay, this is what I'm actually seeing when I'm looking on my Google Earth, and I get down that level and I'm actually boots on the ground that spot. You start to really be able to connect those dots. So by your second year, it's good to go back in, revisit stuff. And it's funny because maybe a lot of people will go straight to the part of identifying elk terrain, and then they go back to the more technical stuff, how to put it all together so it's more seamless. And I found that was exactly what I did. I went through the basic stuff, and then you go back and you revisit and fine tune stuff.
Well, that's what I'm seeing too, and that's the feedback I've been getting too. Is that, guys, a lot of folks are saying things like, I really didn't. It seemed so. You went through that pretty quick, and I didn't really realize the importance of that until I actually, like the zones of pressure, for example. When people start really analyzing where the pressure is coming from, how the pressure is getting into their hunt area, how to look at trails and how to look at trailheads, a lot of people just, yeah. Well, then when they find a situation where there's a lot of people and they start to realize that, hey, I should look at that again. And I am. So one of the things I am going to do, guys, is this next year, I've learned so much more about putting this stuff together in a way that can be digested, that I want to go back and redo some of it to make it a little more in the order that you might want to consider doing it. You can do it any order you want, but I have learned some things, and I'm adding some new things, some new technologies. Guys, the minute I publish this thing, the OnX, the Gaia, is out of date, right? There's a new feature, there's a new this, there's a new that. So it's impossible to be perfectly up to date, but I am going to go back and remodularize it a little bit and tweak it, and I'll be honest with you, improve my video editing skills. I get sick and tired of looking at my face when I'm looking at a course. I've got my little face down in the right-hand corner. That's going away. It's just like, I can't take it. And so I've learned a lot over the last few years about that. And especially as I work on this new bear course, I'm learning a lot, that just how to put it together in a little better format.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't even imagine the work goes into it.
Oh, yeah.
So like we were saying, what we want to do is we want to get people working on their e-scouting now, not come middle of August. So, here in British Columbia, we have a spring bear season. A lot of places do, a lot of Western states do. Now, while you're, if you're going through and learning all this stuff now in February, spending a bit of time in February, March, when you're out looking for bears, glassing for bears, you can start to take notes of stuff you learned and just keep mental notes of places where might be conducive to elk come, middle of August, when you can actually go put some boots on the ground in different areas when the snowpack is gone. So I really want to get people involved and taking this course and getting them to actually go through the modules right now, rather than, we talk about this stuff in middle of the summertime and middle of August rolls around and then it's like, hey, here you go. So let's talk about, now we know where to find your, we know where to find it. Now let's talk about getting access. So it's a 2-year subscription. Now, once we're in, I'm going to pull up the screen. So I'm hoping you guys can see it. Hopefully I know what I'm doing here. Share. You guys see that there?
Yep.
Okay. So this is really great. So as you can see, I've already, well, you can see this little 4% complete.
We're going to see. Yeah. We're going to see exactly what you've been doing and what you haven't been doing.
Nobody paid attention to that at all. Okay. So we're in the course right now. Now it's welcome to the course. So now let's just kind of, Mark, walk us through, like, you don't have to get into the details, but what I'll do is I'll click on these and we'll kind of just quickly go through. Obviously, we're not going to go through all of them in great detail. We just want to kind of like familiar.
We'll just hit the highlights. We'll just hit the highlights.
Yeah. So you tell me where we're walking through and I'll click on them and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So before we did that, I wanted to say something about what you just said. So in my course sales, this is what's funny, because it's not funny, but it's eye-opening. I sell 10-to-1 courses, 10-to-1 in August versus any other month of the year. And I'm always like cringe when I get to August and all these guys start buying the course. Because I'm like, you waited too long.
Yeah.
To be able to really go through it and prepare a hunt plan and get a custom markup set going, all the things. You can do it. You can do it, right? But you're under the gun to, especially if you're a new hunter. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate what you said, that now is the time is that you should start working on, at the same time you're looking at application strategies and what tags you're going to go for and all that stuff. You should start working on hunt areas. And there's a lot of things you can do initially that's not a waste of time. You know, when you start looking at pressure, you start looking at core hunt areas, you start looking at just doing flyover tours, which I'm going to go over tonight. I have a live webinar tonight. I know this is coming out after the fact, but I am going to go over some of the Google Earth stuff tonight. And some of it's related to early identification of hunt areas. So I did want to mention that my number one month is August, which it should not be. It should be right now in February. Okay. So it's funny. I love looking at your percent there, Kevin, but
I had to bring it up because I knew you were going to comment.
That's funny.
So the other thing that I could tell, I'm like the federal government, right? I'm like the, I'm watching over you guys now. Not really. I do not pay attention, but I can go in there and I can see which modules you're skipping, and I can see which ones you're looking at, which ones you're looking at the most. And that's actually what we were just talking about, Derek. I'm going to redo some things based on these statistics that I'm seeing. So the most people, like you just mentioned, they get in here and they start scrolling down through there. Kevin's not even there yet. And you get down to where it says elk finding concepts. Okay, I want to start there.
Find elk.
That's 20 modules in, and you're going to start there. Which, hey, there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Guilty. Guilty. Straight to that part.
But I think you will be surprised that the little tips and things that you'll pick up in a lot of the other modules. You know, I've been chasing elk for this will be my 34th year in the West. And I've learned a lot of things, and not because I'm good at it. It's because I've made every freaking mistake known to man. And a big part of this course is really helping people to not make some of the mistakes that I've made. Anyway, a lot of people do want to skip ahead and skip around, and there's nothing wrong with that. And what's great about the course, it does track your percentage of each module. It keeps track of where you're at, and it keeps track of where you're at in each video. I do, right, guys, realize that some of these videos they're an hour long, and they're detailed. And so being able to stop in the middle and come back to the same spot was important. And so it does keep that kind of in track as well. So, you know, right off the bat, you got the welcomes, you got the things. It's got a curriculum overview, gives you kind of what's all included. But the most skipped over modules in the course are the realities of e-scouting and that understanding limitations. And guys, these are the biggest hunt killers for guys that get over their head. They plan hunts that are too far from the trailhead for what they're capable of doing, or more importantly, what their partners are capable of doing. Especially if they're newer hunters, they don't understand the Western terrain. They don't understand the effects of altitude. So there's a lot of grounding information in there in those couple of modules that help you kind of set up your whole plan for success. So, but again, people tend to be like, oh, I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. I don't need to look at that. So again, I just wanted to throw that out there. The state method research, excuse me, there's a lot of information there and a lot of links there, which actually I've got a couple of broken links that I found just recently that I need to fix. And so in here, we start breaking down the various states, the various links to the various harvest statistics for all the states. I've tried to organize it so it's really easy for you to get to where you want to go to analyze it. I talk a little bit about how I personally do it. Now, this is one of the modules that I'm going to redo and add a lot of new stuff. I'm going to insert a lot of go hunt stuff. I'm going to insert a lot of other research methods that I use. And there's some, it talks about research articles that I've used and that I continue to use. Like, for example, Top Rut. So there you go. That Top Rut is defunct now. You can no longer get those KML files from that company, but you can get them from me now because I wanted to feel that they're so valuable. That was one of the reasons that I created those files. But remember, this is a 4-year-old program, so I do have a few things in here that I'm going to go back and I'm going to adjust and update. But for the most part, though, it's all pretty solid. And then next up, we get into the basic needs of elk, which is a lot of people don't understand what elk eat during certain times of the year. A lot of people think of elk, they think, well, they eat grass. So I need to find just places that's not true. Grass makes up a big portion of their diet. There's no doubt about it. But at certain times of year, they focus on woody plants. They eat a lot of forbs. They switch grasses. They switch types of grasses depending on if they're wintering versus the season during the rut. And so there's a lot of considerations in the basic needs as well. And one of the best presenters for basic needs of elk that I've ever heard is Randy Newberg. He spends a lot of time and he's put a lot of work into what elk need during different cycles and different stages of the year. So I've learned a lot from him, and his inspiration and some of his stuff has a lot to do with what I've done here. So, do you guys have any questions on those, or you just keep kind of going with that?
Yeah, I mean, for the listeners up in Canada, a lot of this stuff, though, like the state applications, obviously isn't essential to what we're doing up here.
Right.
But everything else is. I mean, elk are elk. So just because some of the stuff, and you guys are talking about some of the stuff that's in like Montana, Colorado, Utah. I mean, Utah's, these are all bordering states of Canada, British Columbia, Alberta, right? So a lot of this stuff is essential and is, it's contiguous with what's going on up here.
Well, as far as the state research, guys, I hope as you're going through this, what you're going to pick up on is not so much, like you said, Kevin, the specifics. It's the process that you need to go through, right? The process is the same. How to look at harvest data, how to do 5-year averaging, how to look at various research articles on habitat in Canada. I guarantee you there's been a lot of research done on elk habitat that has the word hunting is not in there one time.
Yeah,
right.
And those articles are gold, guys. When you can find that level of research, you start to understand elk so much better than you did before you read that article. And so when I talk about research methods and applications and stuff, all that has to be I want to include all of that. So don't get caught up into, well, I'm not in Montana, I'm not in Colorado, that's fine. But what I want you to get out of this is the process and the methodology that you're going to work through as you identify units, areas, zones, whatever your situation is where you're trying to apply it to, for example, Canada. And it's funny. I don't know if it's because of your podcast guys or not, but the numbers of Canadians that are reaching out to me saying, hey, Google Earth in Canada sucks. And how do you get better quality images? And they're always fuzzy and they're always this and that. And Alaska too, same. I get the same about Alaska. But the numbers of Canadians that are finding Treeline Academy and getting involved is really incredible. I'm getting almost as many questions from Canadians as I am from Americans on it right now. It's really, I guess there's a need. There's just not a lot of resources that I've been able to uncover, at least for Canadians. Now, I am working on toolkits.
I'm not familiar with any of them. So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
why stuff like this is good. And like I said, I mean, elk are elk. And, you know, I've killed elk. Like this year, I killed elk in British Columbia and Alberta. I mean, they do the exact same thing regardless where you are, you know.
Well, I am working on too, guys. I've gotten such a demand from Canada that I am working on GIS tools for Canada. It's more complicated for me because I can find the data, but I have to understand your system a little better than what I do in order to apply that data. So I'm in the process. I hope by next year I'm going to have a full set of Google Earth toolkits, just like I have for the states. For Canada is my goal. So I'm working on that.
Awesome
as well. So I might actually be picking your guys' brains a little on that as well when I get to it. You know, historical fires and stuff like that's pretty simple, but when it comes to hunting units, hunting zones, and linking all that stuff in, that's where I've got to learn the system.
Mm-hmm.
So basic needs of elk, we talked about that. Identify core hunt areas is the next module, kind of in the chain. And what we're really doing there is this is where it gets this is where I want to come back and improve this, because it's really difficult to put this in the right order for the things that you should be doing step by step by step. Because I like to do e-scouting. The way I approach my e-scouting guys is by little bites. And what I mean by that is I try not to sit down and do a whole hunt plan at one session. I think it's a mistake. I think you miss things. You overlook things. You don't see the big picture all the time. I'll work on hunt area A for a little while, and then I'll work on another whole complete different hunt area. Then I'll come back and work on A. I find that going back and forth, I just start to pick up on things that I overlooked very easily. And I'm like, oh, I didn't really notice that you could get into this from over here, or from even across the state line. You know, just little things like that start to make, well, that's obvious. I don't know why how did I miss that road? How did I miss that way in? Or how did I not identify this? How did I miss this north slope over here? And, oh, that road is closed. I thought it was open. All those things. It's hard to get all of that done with one pass. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I think that the more you come back and revisit your hunt plans and your strategy, the better they get. Now, in order to do that, you have to have a pretty good documentation system, or journaling or notes, and the way you're marking up the custom icons and the custom colors and all the things that I've talked about a million times on a lot of podcasts. All these things have to be working and have to be, you know, they have to be firing on all cylinders for it to really make sense and work for you. So, you know, I like the way you're scrolling through. So you can kind of, when I'm looking for core hunt areas, what I'm looking for is areas that I want to consider for hunting spots, right? These are not, maybe they're going to make the cut, maybe they won't. But like, let's just say, for example, if I'm going to Montana and I'm going to be hunting for a couple weeks, I want to have, when I leave for my hunt, I want to have 3 to 5 hunt areas ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
But that might mean, guys, that I start with 10. I might have 10 outlines. And so what I like to use, the tool I like to use, I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, is I like to use the polygon tool. I drop a quick area polygon around any place I'm interested in, and I make a few notes about it, and I move on. And man, that technique has really helped me to identify some really prime spots. And if I find that I'm not interested in it or it doesn't work, I just delete them. But I will put those polygons around real quickly around any area that I'm considering, make a few notes, and then move on. So when I'm talking about identifying core hunting areas, I'm really initially looking to label or identify areas that I need to come back to, that, or I want to fully vet and I want to break out a little more. I want to vet them more. I want to really start to dig in to these areas to see where they are going to end up on my list of 5. So one last thing I'll say about that, guys, is I work really hard not to have a number 1 hunt area, especially at this time of year. It's hard not to do, guys. You find this spot, you're like, oh, this is the mother load. This is on my A list. And you spend so much time on that one and you really neglect your other 4, right? And when it comes time and you get into the mountains and you get in there and you're like, oh, this isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Well, your B, C, D, and E are not really fully vetted because you put all of your eggs in one basket, or, most of them. And so I work real hard not to have a preconceived idea of what my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hunt area is until I get through the whole process. And I'm shocked at how many times that number 4 that I thought was, oh man, this is a Hail Mary spot. This is a Hail Mary backup spot. Once I really looked at it and really, it ended up being my number 1 spot.
Mm-hmm.
But so I hope you guys are picking up on that I try not to get too tunnel visioned on your prime spot versus a backup spot, at least at this point in the process.
Yeah, I know. So when I first met you, that's one thing we talked about. And that's one thing I always felt like I was doing, was putting too much emphasis on one spot. And I mean, you and I have known each other for what, like 3 years now? And in 3 years, I've killed 4 elk. So, I mean, all these things that we've been talking about and, I've been absorbing throughout that time is definitely working.
Well, and success breeds success, guys. You guys know how it is. Like once you can start moving the needle, that's why the success rates are so low. It's the 80-20 rule, guys. 80% of the guys, 20% of the elk hunters kill 80% of the elk. It's just the Lampers, the Sam Davises. I mean, you've killed 3 out of 4. That's pretty daggum good. You got a few guys that are at the top of the food chain, and then everybody else is struggling for this 5% realm. So these are the things we're talking about right now, and that we're going to be talking about through this whole series, are all things that all of these guys are doing to move that needle. Now, they may not call it 4 hunt areas. They may not call it zones of pressure. They may not call it establishing a hunt parameter. But I can guarantee you that these top level dudes are going through a process that's very similar to this. And they don't even, some of them, like Ryan Lampers, doesn't even know why he does it. He just has been doing it for so long. He's had so much experience. He just knows, well, that spot's got elk. There's going to be elk right there. It's just, he can look at it and he doesn't realize that subliminally he's processing that whole environment, that whole landscape, and he's making a determination based on experience, knowledge, all of this stuff. And it just makes sense to him. He's like, well, that's obvious. That's the spot. But a newer hunter would look at it and be like, well, I don't know why that spot's any better than this spot over here. Because they got nothing to base it on. They got no past experience to apply to it. And that's where I hope this course is going to set, differentiate some of these hunters from others, is that it's going to give you a strategy and the tools to work through the process. And maybe you'll use some, maybe you'll use all of them, maybe you'll use very few of them, but the ones that you do use and the ones that you do apply will move the needle. Guaranteed will move the needle.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, you're going to
you know,
absorb all this stuff. And like you said, I mean, every place is different. Every hunter is different. How everybody hunts is different. I mean, you're going to find ways that you're going to apply these specific things to your application, but they will become successful. And like subconsciously, you might not even know you're doing them, but you're just doing them.
that's right. And guys, maps, I can't stress this enough. The more you do it, the better you get at it, right? Like anything. And if I'm pretty freaking good with technology and mapping and tools. That's my strength. Because I'm from the Midwest. I was traveling to hunt elk for the first 27 years. I never, not one trip, boots on the ground scouted Western elk. Never. Every single place I went to was all digital. And still to this day, even living in Montana, I talk about this a lot, but I rarely put boots on the ground. I just don't think it's that valuable. Now, a lot of guys do, and I think it's to each their own. But where elk are in June, where they are in May, where they are is not where they're going to necessarily be in September. And now there's things you can do when you're finding old rub lines in June. That gives you some idea where the rutting areas are. I get it. And everyone said, you read a lot of research about where the calving areas are, is a lot of times where the rut zones end up being. I get all that too. But I will go out on a limb and say, if you're going to spend a full weekend boots on the ground scouting, you're going to drive to spot A, 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours, 10, whatever it is. And then you're going to spend the whole weekend hiking around. Maybe you might cover 20 miles. Maybe you might cover 25. If you took the same amount of time, all the time that you're there, and you spent it in your applications and aerial photos and analyzing view sheds and 3D analysis and flyover tours and zones of pressure. And now you spent all that time doing that. You are way, 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 way further down the road than you ever will be boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You can't cover the territory. You can't see everything you want to see. And now there's nothing wrong with it. If you've got the time and you've got the resources to do it, by all means, knowing terrain and being able to be in there and get a feel for it is never a waste of time. Don't get me wrong on this. I'm just saying, if I had to spend X amount of hours and that's all I had, I would rather spend it looking at big, giant zones and breaking them down than I would drive into one particular trailhead in the middle of XYZ unit and hiking around for 3 days. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, it does, buddy. Well, the thing about it, I just want to quickly add, is like time is the biggest currency for everybody as we get older, right? We've got very busy lives. The nice thing about like Treeline Academy is you can plug away at it if you start now. Like if you go in, buy the get the program now, and we got promo focus 22 promo code will give you a bit of a discount. You go in and you buy it now, and you just start chipping away at these things every night. You put the kids to bed, you come down, you got half an hour before you go to bed. You go through a couple of the modules and you go through them, right? And you just slowly chip away at it. That way, you still have lots of time where you can go back and look at stuff you didn't understand, and you can kind of slowly put it together over time. Whereas, like you said, you do it in August, and then it's quickly you're scanning through because now you don't have time and you realize you want to go hunting, but you're not really absorbing all the stuff you would if you would have taken the time and gone through the process in the way it's designed to go through.
And talk about the confidence. I know for myself personally, getting through the course, identifying core hunting areas, you got plan A, plan B, plan C, you have all these plans, but then you have separate plans in Alberta, our zones are a little bit smaller. You've already identified a completely new area. So like you're saying, like maybe you had some past success. It's too easy to get stuck into a rut. Now I know exactly where I'm going. And if I've gone that hunt plan, I'm not returning to that area if I don't find elk. I can up and move if I have to, because if there's no bugling, no rut action, I can go to a completely other zone. And you have that confidence, that security blanket that I've already vetted all that. I know where I'm going to go. I'm not going to get stuck in a rut, because I know for myself, that's what this program helped me get out of, was getting in ruts where you're just pounding an area over and over again, when really you should have had a plan for a completely new area and just moved.
Man, that was perfect. Probably the number one comment I get from hunters after the season is, man, I spent too much time in an area that didn't have elk.
Yeah.
I spent too much. So let me give you the scenario. You guys are probably going to laugh when I tell you this. So here's your scenario. You're 7 days into, you're on a 10-day hunt. You're day 5. It's just not working out. You're not running into elk. You're not encountering elk. You're not hearing elk bugles. Okay, here's in your mind. Okay, I got 5 days. Do I have time to make a move? I mean, is it really going to be productive? And well, if you work it out the way that I propose that you work it out, you already know how long it's going to take you to drive over there. You know how long it's going to take you to hike into your camp. You know exactly where you're going to camp. You know where your first 5 glassing spots are going to be. You've already got them labeled. You know how long it's going to take you to hike to that glassing spot. Exactly. So think about that. So now it's noon and you're on day 5 and the morning was terrible. You're ready to make a move. Well, you pull out your hunt plan. You're like, okay, in 3 hours, I can be to this trailhead on this new hunt area. It's going to take me 2 hours to hike in. I can be there before dark. And then if I set my alarm at 4 in the morning, I could be at that glassing spot by first light. Guys, that scenario makes you excited to move, right? But when you don't have that and you're sitting there like, well, I guess I could go over there. And just hopefully I'll hear something. And I don't even know where I'm going to. Guys, what if you have to hike into the dark? What if you have to try to pick a campsite in the dark, right? No, you're going to be likely. Now, I'm not saying everybody, but you're going to tend to be more likely to not do it. But when you have it all worked out to the nth detail, like I just told you, and the way that's actually coming up in the next 3 modules here is developing a strategic hunt plan. Guys, that template that I have in this course is the exact template that I use every single year. Now, I tweak it and modify it and whatever, but that template is, and I just updated it again with a few other things that have been helpful for people, I think. So I just updated it a couple months ago. But anyway, that template goes to the level that we just talked about. How long is it going to take me to drive there? How far is my pack in? Where am I going to camp? Where's my first bugling spots or my glassing spots or whatever your strategy is going to be? I'm telling you guys are 9 times more likely to pack up and move to an area and find elk than just be like, well, I got 4 days left. I'm just going to grind it out here.
And let alone if you have reception to even download the maps that you need.
That's right. So, that's the thing. How many guys have I seen pulled over on the side of the road and I pull up, I'm like, what's up, boys? Well, I'm trying to download some new maps for this new area I'm going to. I'm like, well, guys, I drove one time. I hate to admit this. I made a mistake.
Everybody's done that.
I made a mistake. I had 3 or 4 hunt areas and we had a snowstorm that was just monumental in September. We got 18 inches of snow and I'm like, holy crap, we got to change elevations. Well, I did not have, I talk about, if you guys heard me on having those 3 to 5 hunt areas, one of them or 2 of them needs to be a radical change in elevation for a lot of reasons. And this is a good example. We had to get out of the snow. Not that the elk weren't there, but we couldn't hike in it. We couldn't drive in it. We couldn't get where we wanted to go. So it was a limiter, not because maybe we weren't running into elk or that the elk were moved, is because we were limited by being able to access it. Mm-hmm. And so I had to drive 5 hours into Dillon, Montana. I'm even going to tell you where it's at. I had to drive into Dillon, Montana and download some new maps. And I'm just going to say it. We didn't kill any elk. And because we were working on our hunt plan in the middle of the freaking hunt.
Yeah.
And it was a mess. It was a real mess. And I learned my lesson. And ever since then, I don't make that mistake.
Mm-hmm. One of those hard lessons we all have.
It's a hard one.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's never a good feeling.
Okay,
beauty.
so
Let's keep rolling through these
Yeah.
modules here.
So the zones of pressure is the next one. Okay, we've talked about core hunting areas. There's a lot there. We just kind of scratched the surface. And so zones of pressure. This is an area where I feel like most elk hunters do not spend enough time at this area because there is a lot here, and it's very. This is the one where guys this is the one module where people come to me and say, I didn't really grasp what you were saying the first time. I didn't really get it. When you say zones of pressure, I'm like, I know what you mean. I mean, where the hunter's going to park and I get what you're saying. Well, not really. So what you're looking at here is not only is where the pressure is going to come from, where it's likely to come from, and how much pressure is there. Well, how do you know all that? I mean, how would you know that in a spot that you've never been to? You've never gone there before ever. How are you going to make any kind of reasonable determinations for that? Well, we go through that in this module, and there's a lot of things you guys can do. A lot. You can zoom in on every single trailhead and look at and you have to do it in Google Earth Pro, guys. This is the key. You can't do it in OnX. You can't do it in Go Hunt. You can't do it in anything else because of two reasons. One, the image quality is not good enough for this level of detail. Number two, you don't have the dates of the imagery, accurate dates of the imagery. Now, Go Hunt has some historical data now, but still doesn't have the breadth of historical data that's available in Google Earth Pro. So, for example, you zoom in on Trailhead A. You're looking at it and you're paging through the years of aerial photos in Google Earth, right? Well, you look at June. Well, there's a whole bunch of cars there in June. There's a whole bunch of cars there in July. You get to September and there's like almost no cars there. And like, okay, that's interesting. October, no cars. November, bunch of cars. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a lot of late season. Maybe this is a late season. So, guys, there's no magic formula here, but looking at these trailheads or these access points or dead end roads, all these so-called takeoff points, when you zoom in on them, you can see how many cars are there, what dates the cars are there, and more importantly, what types of cars are there. Is it a car? Is it a truck? Is it a horse trailer? Is it Mark Livesay's llama trailer? These are things that start to paint the picture, right? There's horses there. There's four horse trailers there. September 15th. I'm like, okay. Does that mean we're not going there? No, that does not mean that. It's painting us a picture. It's like, okay, there's obviously some type of outfitter or individual. And how do we know if it's outfitter traffic? Well, here's a telltale sign. When you see a horse trailer hooked onto a truck and you see 3 pickups parked right beside it or 3 cars parked right beside it, that's a very, very good indication of an outfitter because you got clients that are parked beside the outfitter. Mm-hmm. When you see a truck and a horse trailer by itself, now, guys, this isn't rules. I'm just saying that's more than likely an individual that's come in there and is hunting on horseback. Does that make sense? These are just guys. These are so obvious and they seem so simplistic.
It's stuff too that nobody thinks about. Like I never thought about that, right? But you do have there's nothing more frustrating than planning a trip, going into an area where you have like an LEH, you just got an LEH, you plan your hunt, you go into this one specific area, you say, okay, I'm going to get access this way, and you go in there and you realize that an outfitter's in there with 3 clients at the same time. Nothing that there's anything wrong with outfitters being in there. It's their right. I mean, there's lots of land to cover, but still, it's like, oh, you kidding me? Very frustrating. So those are things definitely to think about. And what we talked about, not the last time you were on, but the time before, is accessing historical data in Google is really good too. And I never knew anything about that as well.
Because most people don't really, it's a very obscure button at the top and it's just not obvious. And let's just be honest, I'm going to talk about this tonight on this webinar. Believe it or not, Google Earth was not built for hunters.
And as much as we'd like to think it was made just for us.
They didn't put the buttons in that said, to find the best glassing spot, press here. And so again, we're using a tool that wasn't designed for hunting, but is perfect for hunting. We just got to learn how to manipulate it, adapt it, and more importantly, how to set it up with the right preferences and settings, right? And that's all covered in this course that's coming up in a module we're getting to here. But so zones of pressure. Okay. We talked about trailhead analysis. One of the last things, I don't want to give away all of the trips here, but
No, man,
one of the other things that we guys do not trust your hunting apps for motor vehicle and motor vehicle accessible roads. Now, are they accurate most of the time? Yes, they are. Some are better than others. But if you guys have listened to me very long, you're going to learn really quick that I am a master of multiple tools. And I think it's incredibly valuable that you learn how to use multiple tools, not just one. You know, I know guys that have the Onyx tattoo and they're like, man, I bleed red. I got default red waypoint icon tattooed on my shoulder. I'm like, okay. I'm good with that. Looks like we got somebody else trying to join us here, but
looks really old. I didn't seniors day.
So, you know, I cringe when guys tell me that, I'm an OnX guy. I only use OnX, or I'm a Go Hunt guy and I live and die Go Hunt. I'm like, well, I like it too. Or I use Gaia, or like you Canadian guys. I recommend, if you don't know about Gaia, you need to look at it very carefully. It's got a tremendous amount of Canadian tools. We've talked about that before on podcast, but it is a very valuable tool here in the West, and even for Canadians, I think, is from what I've seen with it. It's one of my favorite apps. But the key is multiple tools. And that's why, I said Google Earth. Google Earth is still, to this day, is my number one hunt planning tool. I spend the most time in this course going through Google Earth and how to use it effectively and efficiently and how to apply it, because it is still the number one. Now, the apps are getting better and better and better, guys. They're getting better all the time. More tools, more features, more things. But nobody has the image quality of Google Earth. Nobody has the historical imagery capabilities of Google Earth. Nobody has the route profile capabilities of Google Earth. Nobody has the view shed capabilities of Google Earth. They just don't. Now, maybe they will, and they don't have the 3D capabilities of Google Earth. Now, they have 3D, and it's pretty good, but it's not as good as Google Earth. So I know I sound like a broken record, but Google Earth, guys, is no good to you in the field. If you're not doing your work now in February, like we're talking about with this podcast, that tool is useless to you in September. This is a tool that has to be used and applied and vetted right now. Not right now, but before the hunt, right? Before the hunt. So when I talk about zones of pressure, I spend an enormous amount of time looking at vehicle accesses, what roads are open, what roads are closed, and what roads are seasonal. And I do not rely on one tool. I look at my hunting apps. I look at my layers, my toolkits that I built in Google Earth. But then ultimately, I go retrieve you guys might want to write this down. I retrieve the geotagged PDF files from the National Forest Service, where I got the most recent motor vehicle closures, and I always lay them out side by side on my map, and I trace the roads to make sure that I'm not missing anything. One of my very, very best hunting areas that I've ever been to was a road that was seasonally closed. It closed on September the 6th, which in Montana, you never hear of a road closing after the first week of elk season. It rarely happens, right? It's either they're open or they're not, right? They don't close in the middle of the season. But this one did for some reason. All the apps were wrong. Every app was wrong. Said the road was open. So I pulled up there. I found it. I pulled up there. There's an outfitter sitting there, young kid. He had some horses. I had my llamas. There was a big ruckus. And we got to talking. He goes, how'd you find this spot? I said, well, to be honest with you, I was a little worried. I said, He said this road closed last weekend. He goes, yeah, it does. I'm like, well, that's why I'm here. I gave it a week. I figure after that road closes a week later, the elk might filter back in here because the terrain looks incredible. He says, well, yeah, it is. And he said, you're the first person I've ran into here before like this. I said, because everybody thinks this road's open. And I'm like, yeah. I said, how do they? And he says, they got it bolted. They have a big gate and everything, so you can't get around it. And sure enough, so we talked and he asked me where I was going. And we stayed away from each other, obviously. And I went in, there was hundreds of bulls bugling in this spot.
Nice.
And it was a spot that was the first weekend, I'm sure got worn out with ATVs and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I stumbled on it, guys. I know that was a long-winded story, but I stumbled on it because I was going through that checklist of testing my motor vehicle accesses in this spot. I had totally discounted this spot, guys. This was like spot 7 until I found the error. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to move that up my list. And I ended up going there, and we were covered up in elk for a solid week. I mean, more elk. I hate to say this, there was almost too many elk because these bulls would bugle and they'd run towards another bugle. We couldn't call an elk. There was so many elk bugling. One, we couldn't. I'm 58 years old. My hearing is not what it used to be. I couldn't tell what direction these bastards were. Number one. Number two, they're bugling every direction, and they're all going to each other and not coming to us. And we were basically trying to intercept bulls on the way to other bulls, and it was crazy. It was one of the craziest bugling fests I've ever been in. But the fun part about it was I found it with this technique. And so anyway, that was long-winded, but I wanted to spend time on that because that is a very important module. It's long, it's detailed, and step by step, and it's not a waste of time. Trust me on this. Because the more you study the pressure, where it's coming from, and how it's navigating in your hunting area, the more the picture starts to make sense. The more you start to really wrap your mind around a hunt area. Real quick, I'll tell you another quick story. I love telling stories with the thing that applies to what I'm doing here. So I was in a spot. We hiked in 6 miles, which isn't that far. We took the llamas in. We take the llamas in. We ran into some elk. It looks good. We set up our camp. Everything's money. We go out in the morning. We're into elk. Called in an elk. We didn't get one. Didn't get him. I was hiking down the trail, and I see this older dude. I'm like, in jeans. He's wearing jeans, blue jeans, and it's rainy, and he's got cowboy boots on, slick bottom cowboy boots and jeans, and he's got a longbow. Nothing wrong with that setup, guys. Nothing wrong with that. But let's just put it this way. He didn't just give me the impression that he was the epitome of fitness, okay? And I go up to him. I'm like, how did you get in here? I didn't mean it disrespectfully. He goes, well, I just hiked in this morning. I'm like, what do you mean you hiked in this morning? In your jeans? Well, my truck's just parked right over there. I'm like, what do you mean over there? Dude, I missed a road. I studied this area, and this was an obscure road, right? This was a local dude that knew about this road. Mm-hmm. But I did find it on the National Forest motor vehicle use map, but I didn't look at it. It was not on the hunt applications. It was not in there, but it was on there. And this local knew about it. And this dude was like a quarter mile from where we were. And I'm just like, okay, and he didn't mess up our hunting at all. There's no problem. But my point is the time you spend on this is never a waste of time. Mm-hmm. It's never a waste of time. Okay.
It's actually funny that you say that because the more I paid attention to that, the more intense the pressure that actually helped my hunting because I was able to narrow in. Because when you see that and you see the trails, and then in archery, if you're in there, if you go back in late season, you know where all that pressure is coming from. And like I took my kid out, I knew exactly where those elk were going to be because the pressure was so intense. I could narrow in. I'm like, oh, they can only be in 3 different spots.
Yeah.
Because the pressure from private and from public is so intensified, the trail access is only limited. Like, oh, they got to be right there. And we went there opening morning. We got them a bull. We found 200 head. So it's so critical. This part was one of the things that just makes your hunts more efficient even too.
Well, it's funny you said that because I get a lot of questions from Washington, Oregon, guys that hunt areas, high pressure areas, right? Like what you're describing. They're like, Mark, I can't get away from hunters. It's impossible. Excuse me. This zones of pressure doesn't apply to me. I said, oh yeah, it's more important for you.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, guys, I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's easier to, and I'm not discounting you, Derek, on you. It's easier to find elk in higher pressure areas than it is in no pressure areas.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, what are you talking about? I said, let me give you an example. So if you go into the wilderness, you hike into the middle of let's just call it the Bob Marshall. There's no elk there anyway, so let's just use that example. You go into the Bob Marshall wilderness, millions of acres. You got to find the place where these elk want to be because there's no pressure. There's nobody there. There's no moving them around. You have to find the exact place that they want to be because of the food sources, the North Slope, all the features. But if you take Derek's example, when you're looking at for places where people, the furthest, the most difficult, whatever you want to look at, where people guaranteed you got a high chance of running into elk there. Those are easier to identify than some pinpoint spot in the middle of a 1,000,000-acre wilderness, guys, sometimes. So zones of pressure is absolutely money for guys that hunt high pressure areas. Now, for low pressure areas, it's not as important because the elk can be anywhere. There's low pressure, but it's still important. And in my case, what's more important in the lower pressure areas is the best access spot, which is going to be the easiest way to get in, easiest way to get out, which is going to be the best for my llamas or the best for backpacking or the best for this, the best for that. So when you look at zones of pressure, guys, remember, we're not only, the last thing I'll leave you with on this is we're not only looking at motor vehicle use. Derek said something in his statement I want to point out. The trail pressure is critical in high pressure areas. So where what I mean is the established trails, meaning on the topo map, where the trails are. In a high pressure area, you want to work around those as much or more than you're going to work around the roads. Because hunters, they're just creatures of habit, guys. Most, I should say all. 90% of guys are not going to be very far from that trail. And if you can figure out drainages and ways and routes and ridges that you can stay away from, even a quarter mile away sometimes, guys, half a mile away from those established trails is a really key part of my planning when I'm looking at a higher pressure area. So keep all that in mind, and that's all covered in the course. In that section, on that establishing zones of pressure section.
And I will say, going through the course, the videos are very well detailed. I know we can't play them on the feed here, but it's especially with like the Google Earth and zones of pressure, it's really awesome if you have even a second monitor where you can play it, stop it, maybe do a couple of application features that you're talking about or specifying, make a waypoint, change your perspective, and then play again and then kind of follow along is pretty helpful too, I found.
Well, you said that's a great,
we
that's
can
coming
play
up.
them. Yeah, we can play them. I'm just not going to play them because I mean, you guys.
Yeah, maybe
exactly.
when you go back and edit this, you could put in some of the videos.
Yeah, they're really well done.
Well, except for the talking head that you mentioned earlier, I'm getting rid of that. I'm getting rid of that. I can't handle it, guys. I don't know. I've got this aversion to seeing myself on camera. I don't know. There's something about it. Like all my hunting videos that we do, I can't watch them hardly. And all the podcasts I do, I rarely listen to them myself. And I was at a bear hunting event one time and I was speaking, and after it was over, this whole family comes up to me. Like they got like 97 kids and it's this young wife and young husband. I'm like, man, you guys have been busy. I mean, they got a lot of kids. And his wife comes up to me. She goes, I feel like I know you. I'm like, really? She goes, I listen to you every night when I'm laying in bed. I'm like, because my husband has had this course
The
on for
floating
months.
head.
I'm like, oh my.
That's awesome.
So, anyway, so when you talked about the tools of the trade, when you talked about your dual monitors, guys, one of the things that I do in that module, and that's coming up, where we'll get to that one, it's coming up too, but I want to jump to it since you said something about it, was
yeah, let's skip over right to that one, and we'll keep rolling through these.
Okay, I do recommend a dual monitor setup, guys. It's not very expensive. I would rather see you personally, if money is an object, which it is for most people, I'd rather see you buy a cheaper, much cheaper computer and 2 nicer monitors than a super nice computer and just use the laptop screen. Because remember, all of your hunt planning, it's all web-based stuff, mostly, right? It's all internet-based, browser-based, except for Google Earth Pro. And Google Earth Pro is such an old application, it runs on anything, right? All the things we're talking about do not require high-end computer power. So I would recommend,
with technology now, you can Wi-Fi anything just to a regular TV. You can watch
that's right,
through everything.
Guys, multiple screen. That's the other thing I'll say. Everybody's like, well, I want to get a 40-inch. I'm like, that's okay. But I'd rather see you with 2 20-inches than 1 40-inch. For the same reason that we just talked about, guys, there is a big value into having Go Hunt, Gaia open on one screen, Google Earth open on another screen, and going back, copying latitude, longitude, pasting it in, and going to and analyzing it, doing the 3, then going back and dropping a pin. And there's a tremendous amount of value in dual monitor setups when it comes to e-scouting. So I have a 4 monitor system now. But I'm going to tell you, I'm embarrassed to say this, but before I switched to this 4 monitor setup, I had a 6 monitor setup before that. It was like, my e-scouting room was like NASA. It was like, I could put up every application that I have, but it was too much. It was more for show than it was for reality.
I'd get a headache looking at
but
that.
I am switching now to a 2 bigger monitors, 2. So I'm constantly tweaking this, guys. Now, I'm not recommending you do all this, but I am noticing the best monitor you can get for e-scouting right now is the curved monitors, right? The new curved ones. Now, guys, they have come down in price. I would never have recommended that a year ago or even 2 years ago. They were cost prohibitive. I would never spend that much money on a curved monitor. But this is funny. I was just in Costco and I saw the curved landscape monitors for under $200. I was like, holy cow. This is the you know what I'm talking about, right? On these curved monitors. You guys have seen them. They present the almost incredible 3D resolution. So, and just with the ease of your eyes and to absorbing the big picture, I really like those monitors. I don't have them yet. So I do not have the curved monitors yet, but I am thinking about it right now. So anyway, we're in the weeds, but I get that question a lot, guys. If I'm going to do this, how do I do it? And that's what I recommend is spend more money on monitors than you're going to spend on the computer is the basic. Okay. So hunt parameters was next. And in that module, I'm going to spend very little time on that because we talked about zones of pressure. So this is mainly for newer hunters, guys. This is for guys. This module is really designed for guys that are new. When I say new, under 3 years, 3 years of Western hunting. Because one of the biggest mistakes that Western hunters make is they get on Google Earth, they get on their hunt app, they start looking around, they're like, well, I'm going to go here, 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 and here. Well, then when they pull up to Trailhead A, they're like, holy shit, this is way bigger, way steeper, and way further than I thought it was, right? We've all been there. We've all driven up spots and like, oh man, this looks a lot more interesting than I thought. So guys, it's real easy to hike around these mountains on Google Earth. But when the truck actually goes into park and you've got to pull that backpack out of the back and you got to make your way to that first camp. And that camp is 9 miles away. And you're really only capable of doing 4 miles away. You got a problem, right? You got a big problem. And
we did, just to cut you off there. This is that exact thing happened to me and a buddy. We were going into this area and I'm going to say this the nice way. He's just out of shape. So we get there and we start looking at it and he's like, he was intimidated right away. I was like, well, it won't be so bad. We'll just, we'll zigzag up through and we'll make our way up and we're in no rush. We got a third of the way up and he pulled the plug. He couldn't do it. So we had to come up with something for the other 3 days. And, we had set our goals and I had done a lot of ski scouting on that area and I know it holds good mule deer. And it's just, obviously we didn't see a single thing after that because we spent a lot of time in areas that we just weren't
that you hadn't planned to be in, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Guys. And so that's such a good story, but unfortunately that is so common and what happens with that story, Kevin, is unfortunately a lot of people that happens to, that ends their Western hunting careers.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are like, I'm just not cut out for this. And it's not because they're not cut out. It's just because they did not have a plan. Guys, you can kill elk right by the freaking road. You do not have to be 20 miles in to kill an elk. Now, I like to go deep because I like to be no people, unpressured elk. I just like it. I'd rather hunt less elk in a remote backcountry just spot where I'm kind of by myself than I'd rather hunt more elk by the road. And that's just me. That's a personal preference. That's got nothing to do with whether there's elk there or not. But a lot of it is how you put it.
That's why it comes. This is the time to get into these courses because you start building a hunt plan. You start doing your e-scouting. And if it seems like it's an area where you feel is going to be very physically demanding, now you get in shape. You start adding that to your hunt plan.
Right. You know what you're facing.
Till August. Yeah, exactly.
So what a hunt parameter is, guys, it's a real simple concept, but it's something it's one of those things that's so simple and it's so often ignored. So in Google Earth and in CalTopo and in a few of the other applications, you can create a radius. So in Google Earth, for example, is where I use it the most. And the reason I do it in Google Earth the most is because where do I do most of my pre-hunt work? In Google Earth. So I'll go to Trailhead A. If I know that my limit is about 5 miles, okay, I really don't want to be looking at many areas outside of 5 miles with my backpack, right? Whatever it is. Well, I draw a 5-mile radius around that trailhead. And I just leave it on the screen. So when I'm starting to look and I'm starting to e-scout and I'm starting to break it down, guys, that circle gives me a reference to that's my reality zone.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean I won't creep over the line and look, but how many times are you in Google Earth? And you guys are on there a lot, so it's going to be funny. You guys are going to smile when I say this, I bet. All of a sudden you're looking and you look back and you're like, oh shit, I'm 20 miles on the freaking trailhead here. I'm wasting my time dropping weight pins back here, right? And so I have found that little simple task of dropping that 5-mile radius around the trailhead keeps me grounded and keeps me focused on where I need to be focused.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can waste a lot of time e-scouting an area that you actually can't actually hunt. And don't forget, I know this is so stupid and it seems so simple, is don't forget that you got to hike in there, but you also got to bring an animal out.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're doing elk, guys, now most guys, I mean, Kevin, it doesn't matter. That dude's a beast, so it doesn't matter. I mean, he just brings elk out one trip. But if you're going to hunt mule deer, your radius is probably going to be a little bigger than if you're going to hunt elk solo. Would everybody agree to that?
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe your blue zone, your hunt parameter is blue for mule deer, and maybe it's red for elk. And you have one's 5 miles and one's 7 miles, whatever. So I know that sounds like a basic, simple tool, but it is such an effective application. And we talk about why you want to do it, how to do it, and kind of some considerations that you want to think about when you do it in that module. Okay.
I think you should also have a secondary circle, even though like your 5 miles, let's say, is your money. Like that's your extent. But Kevin and I have talked about it lots in the last couple of years here in BC, where it's so freaking hot for the first month and a half of elk season. Okay, that's nice that you can walk that far. Now have a realistic circle as to how far and how long it's going to take you to get that elk, depending on the terrain, when it's 25, 30 degrees Celsius. I don't care if you can walk another 5 miles back. Nobody cares if you lose that elk.
That's
You
right.
got to keep that in mind too. And how
like,
steep that terrain is or how nasty it is.
Yeah, and like we've already talked about in the show is that I lost a lot of my first elk I killed in September. A lot of the elk went, like the bottom part of it went bone sour just because like that day it was 35 degrees Celsius. And I mean, I was trucking pretty fast back to get it out, but still, I mean, you have to work. Those animals are so hot, it's the middle of the rut. There's a lot going on. So yeah, that's setting these.
Well, there's
parameters,
a whole set of strategies that you can employ for meat care too, but you're right. So here's the other thing too. You know, like Kevin mentioned this before, his buddy was kind of over his head on this hunt, right? On the mule deer hunt, right? It was a little beyond his capability, so they had to make an adjustment. Do you remember when I said earlier that I like to have 5 hunt plans, right? And remember how I said one of them should be at least one of them should be a radical change in elevation, right? Well, one of them also should be a base camp hunt, meaning from a vehicle, from a base camp. Because what if you get hurt? What if you twist your ankle? What if you get fatigued? What if you get altitude sickness? All kinds of things where you need to fall back to a little bit different than a backcountry back in hunt. Well, why not have a pre-designed spot that you can hike from the road every day and hunt? That way you're ready to, like if you had that case and you're ready to implement it, you're ready to jump to it if you need to. Now, you know, most cases you're going to be fine on your back 5 miles in. But if it gets hot, you get injured, you get whatever situation causes you to resort to a base camp hunt. So when I set up my strategy of my hunt plan, I've got, like I said, 5 options. One of them is always a radical change in elevation for a lot of reasons. We don't need to get into it right now, not just snow. And the second one is I always have an option for a base camp hunt. Even though I'm a llama guy, I pack in, guys. I love to pack in, right? I love to go deep, but I always have a vehicle base camp option somewhere in my strategy. And that's ready to go. And if I need to use it, I can use it.
Yeah, and especially with kids, like that's my go-to with kids. It's I have all those hunts planned because physically it's a little bit, you want them to have fun and the hunt not to be too physically demanding sometimes. And yeah, I have those hunts too for my kids. And if I'm injured, I just would probably go right to that hunt too.
That's right. There's a lot of reasons you can end up there, right?
Yeah,
well, let me give you another example. Let's say that you go back in and you're just ripping it back there. It's a 10-day hunt and you're 7 days in and you're back there hunting and you haven't turned up anything yet. You got a couple of days left to hunt. That's it. A couple days. And all your backup spots are going to require a whole day to get in. It's going to be, you only got 2. Dude, jump to your base camp and hunt the last couple of days. Your base camp option, right? Drive over to your base camp option, get a couple of days of in, and you're still hunting. You're still in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to guys all the time that tell me this. Well, I was 7 days in and I just went home. I just went home early. I didn't have another option, right? I'm like, guys, we wait all year for this, right? We're on this podcast right now. I mean, I'm getting excited about elk hunting right now, and we wait. We do everything. We juggle our schedules. We beg our wives. We buy gear. We do whatever it takes to carve these days out. You do not want to come home early because let me tell you what's a guaranteed. Every case, all the time, no exception, guaranteed you're going to regret it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never talked to a hunter that came home early and said, dang, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I just would have stuck in it out. If I'd been a little more mentally tough, if I'd have been a little more prepared, if I'd have been had a little bit better gear, if I would have this, I would have that, I would have that. But I've never heard, man, I'm so glad I left early and quit.
There's nothing more rewarding than sticking it out and getting your animal on the, the last hour of the last day of your hunt. Absolutely nothing more rewarding.
Do you guys follow Ryan Lampers? Do you guys know Ryan?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you know how many giants? And I mean, when I say giants, I mean freaking certified bone crushing giants that he has killed in the last hour of the freaking hunt. Oh my, he is the master of pulling it out of his ass at the last second, because that dude will not go home ever. Just ask his wife. I mean, that dude will never, ever go home early. He will never leave before it's freaking dark. He will never quit glass until he can't see. He will never, ever, ever do it. And that's one thing I've learned from him. I hope he doesn't listen to this because I don't want to give him too much credit. But I've learned that dude just will not. He hasn't seen a mule deer in 20 days. Literally, he was on a hunt. He had seen a deer in 20 days and kills a tank in the last 5 minutes of the freaking hunt. And that's a whole nother level of mental toughness that a lot of guys just don't have, right? Now, I'm not saying that everybody has that, right? But what you do have is you got to have the mental fortitude to suck it up and not be a baby and just stick it out. Elk hunting, guys, is 99% boredom and 1% excitement. It's 99% failure, right? And then all of a sudden, there's an elk standing in front of you.
Yeah.
And it can happen at any second, but not if you're on the drive home, not if you're 100%. In your backyard. So anyway,
I think everybody,
soapbox.
I think everybody has that mental toughness. They have the mental ability. Sorry. They just don't know how to access it. They just they haven't challenged themselves. They haven't put themselves through those hard, difficult situations. Because once you start doing that, then you start building a callus and you start developing that, the willingness to just tough it out for an extra 5 minutes till that last bit of light.
That's exactly right. And what I'm trying to tell you guys today is that if you set up your hunt plan with enough options and all of the features that we're talking about, you are far more likely to stick it out than you are if you don't have a plan. If you don't have a strategy and you don't have a plan B and you don't have a base camp and you don't have a hunt area at a different elevation and you don't have these drive options we were talking, if you don't have all these things worked out, you are far more likely to pull the plug and go home early. Guys, we all miss our wives. Well, some more than others. We all miss our kids. Guys, it's a very common thing. And if you don't, then something's wrong with you, right? Something's wrong with you. Yeah. But if you got to get your mind right, as much as you work on your fitness, much as Kevin, almost every selfie I see of him is some kind of bench press or something he's doing, right? As much as you work on that,
that's our poster boy right there. Focus.
You got to work on the mental toughness side too, guys. You've got to be ready. You got to do self-talk. I know this stuff sounds crazy, but I know this is going to sound crazy, but I hunt a lot of days. So one of my secrets is I do, 20, 30 days at a stint sometimes. I did 42 days with 2 days off bear season this year.
That's a lot.
This past year. 40 days is a long time, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I've got a lot of motivational books. I've got a podcast and stuff like that on my phone. And you'd be surprised what a Andy Frisella podcast will do to you when you're like feeling down and out. And he's like, are you going to be a baby? Are you going to suck it up? Are you going to, and you're like, well, no, I'm not going to be a baby. I am going to suck it up. And some of that can really lift your spirits, guys, on that. Mm-hmm. And so don't discount some of those tactics as well. All right. Sorry, we got a little rabbit hole, but it's all good stuff. All right. So next up is the strategic hunt plan section. We've been alluding to this all the time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I put this in the middle because I didn't want it to be all the way at the end. because I felt it's important. You kind of know what, you know how it is sometimes, guys. You almost have to know your end goal early. So when you work through a course or something like this, you have to know what are you working towards. If you put it at the end, sometimes you're like, okay, I hope that makes sense. So
well, that's
again,
another good reason why you do this now, not later, so you can go through the whole thing and then you can work your way back through it. Yeah, just like Derek was saying earlier.
Yeah. So the strategic hunt plan part, guys, I'm not going to say too much more because we've been beating this one to death. It's really just the strategy, how we put it together, putting together all those various options. But what I can't stress enough is it is vitally important that you write it down. Guys, most guys go on their hunt, they open up their phone, and it's a sea of red. It's the default icon, red, or it's orange if you're go hunt, or it's red if you're Gaia, orange if you're go hunt, red if you're Onyx. I don't know what Spartan Forge is. I don't know what their default color is. I can't remember. But you open up your screen. How many people open up their screen right now? I wish you guys would open up your screen and hold it up. Show me your hunting spots. But it's just all red. That means nothing hardly. You kind of know a few things, but you don't have your notes. You don't have thoughts. You don't know why you picked spot A over spot B or this glassing spot. Why is this a number one glassing spot, number two glassing spot, or a tertiary? Your rating systems, all the things, guys, is all part of this plan. And all I am doing in this course when it comes to this part is I'm not telling you exactly how to do it. I'm telling you how I do it. And you might want to tweak it. For example, I use different icons for different features, but I always use the same icon for that feature. For example, benches. If I find a bench area, meaning, topography, a flat area on a slope that I'm interested in that meets all my criteria, I use an icon for that bench. I use an icon for saddles. I use an icon for feeding zones. I use an icon for camps. I use icons for all things, but I have a master legend for that, right? And then I go one step further. Every icon gets a color for me. Red, and that's bad. Don't use red because red is the default. Orange is the primary color. That means it's a high level of importance. Blue or purple is my secondary, and then purple or blue, whichever one, you get my point. You got three colors for priority. So when you see a bench that's orange, you're like, okay, when I dropped this pin, that was an important bench area for me. Okay, fine. Well, then I go the third level is any features that I find that are, I think, outstanding, no matter what they are, I give them a star. It's a star icon. Almost every hunt platform has it, and I give it a star. And this is why. So if I find a bench that's just money, it's on a north slope, it's 3/4 of the way up, it's in a drainage with no trail, it's like it's got a freaking opening in it where there could be some edge habitat, it's got a creek running through the bench. I'm like, okay, this is a good bench. Star. Why do I do that? Well, it is amazing when you zoom out your screen and you start to see all the colors. Where is all the oranges clustered? Where are all the blues clustered? And then more importantly, where are the stars clustered? You're like, well, look over here. I got 3 star icons right here, and I don't have any anywhere else. Well, it's pretty obvious that this is starting to visually look important to me, right? But think about it. If it was all your default color, it would just look all the same. So what I'm saying is it's really is valuable to take the time in your primary hunt application. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but whichever application that you're going to use as your primary tool on that particular hunt is where you want to do all your icon coloring and all your icon prioritization, et cetera, et cetera. And the same with routes, guys. I plan every route. I trace every trail that's established. I plan all my off trail. All of my established trails are orange. All of my off trails are blue. So Guys, what I'm telling you is that when you open up my app and you're looking at hunt area A, it's almost like a piece of art. You're looking at it and it is starting to make it's speaking to you, right? It's telling you something. It's actually telling you a lot about where you should be concentrating your efforts. But without that level of custom markup, your hunt plan is pretty generic and it's pretty plain and guys, if you're old like me and you've hunted elk for 33 years and you hunt for 80 days a year, you look at those waypoints, you're like, holy shit, what does all that mean down there? What's that glob of right? Have we all looked at so taking the time to develop a system is really, really, really important. So anyway, I hope you got
just on
something
the
from
routes. Personally taking the time to, especially at dark, like you're trying to go through some of these trails and there's some that are safer than others, just knowing and understanding, have a way. Like after I finished your course, I rewalked a lot of those trails and I looked at the topography lines and saying like, okay, I know the zones of pressure. If I shoot an elk in there, what's the most efficient way to pack them out?
Yeah.
And if I got to go in the dark, if I gotta take my kid with me, what's the safest routes and then what's the most efficient, so I'm not dropping down into blowdowns at night and trying to pack out, right? Then I have a designated trail and I know it's following topography. It might be little bit longer, but it is overall easier.
Well, I am so glad you said that because I cover routes quite a bit in my course, but I didn't do a good enough job. I am adding an entire module to route planning. There is so much to this that we can't even scratch the surface today. And most people are like, yeah, what, how could it be that complicated? It's not complicated, but there are some strategies that are going to change the game for you. If you start doing what Derek just mentioned is so subtle, but so important for guys that are, if you didn't pay attention to what he was saying, let me give you an example. You've got your route traced into camp. Remember I said that you knew you could get to camp in 2 hours. Well, how do you know that you could get to camp in 2 hours? You can't just look at the topo map and figure that out. Well, you can if you've got tons of experience. But if you trace the route and you know the distance and you know the elevation gain, so you know, okay, it's 3 miles, it's 2,000 feet of elevation. Okay, it's going to take me approximately 3 hours, right? So you know that route, and that's all in your notes, guys. This is all in your notes. And then when you get to camp, you've got this ridge that's above camp. It's about let's say it's call it 2 miles up. Well, you've routed, it's off trail, like we said, right? You've looked at Google Earth. You've planned the best route through the cliffs, through the topography, and you've traced it in blue up to glassing spot A. Well, now you know how far that route is and how much elevation it is. So now you know how long it's going to take you to get to glassing spot A. The worst thing you can do is get to an elk glassing spot an hour after daylight. You're not helping yourself, guys. When you get to your glassing spot an hour after the elk have already walked into the timber, right? So how many guys do that? They do it all the time because they do not know how they underestimate how long it's going to take them to hike all the way up there, right? But here's what's more important. How many guys do you know that are setting on glassing spot A? They hike 2 hours to get up there, and they're like looking at they're in grizzly country. They're looking at their watch and they're like, man, we got an hour before dark. I should start heading back so I can find my way back. All the freaking time. It happens. But if you got that blue line already routed, and you know it's a solid route, you know you're not going to get cliffed out. You know it's the same way with laying a track on the way to the route, right? If you've got a route to follow on your phone in the dark, you're 90% more likely to stay during the prime time than you are if you have no route and you're like, I got to get back to the trail because it's going to be a nightmare to find my way back if I wait till dark.
I feel like that happens so many times to folks. They just leave a little too early, and like last light is the best light.
That's right. And first light.
What I've done in a couple of my main trails that I go into, a couple of my spots, whether they're going up into slides or whatever, like we've talked before, I'm in some nasty ass steep country here. But if it's like a main trail that we use to access certain areas, and then at a certain point we'll branch off from there, what we've done in the past is we'll actually stick some of those thumbtacks that shine for the walk home or the walk in for that matter. Because if you got to get way up high to a glassing spot, sometimes these areas that there's tons of trails and you can get off a trail if you're not, if you don't know it well enough. But if you got a couple thumbtacks here and there that glow, or sorry, that reflect light on your way up or on your way down, it's just one less thing you even have to consider. Not that you're relying on it, but it's nice to have, like, oh yeah, there's my thumbtack there.
That's right.
It's not like you have a whole ribbon of them, but a couple of them here and there on a trail that you run all the time. It helps.
Some critical spots, right?
Yeah.
You're not doing it on every trail that you walk up, but it's like, these are key ones.
Well, for you guys too that are newer, that are listening to this and don't have a ton of experience with the apps and navigating. So when I started hunting, this is pretty freaking old. Dang it, I should have I still got my first GPS. It's downstairs. If we record another segment, I'm going to bring it on and show it. You guys, it's about this long. It's about 12 inches tall. It's got a flip open screen. It takes 16 AA batteries and it only lasts for like an hour. And the only thing it told you was your latitude, longitude, and what direction, what bearing you needed to go and how far it was. That's it. No nothing. Like I said, I'm old. But so when GPSs first came out, guys, I know people might know this, but I don't know that they really know it. There used to be this thing called selective availability, where they were worried back in the day that people they'd use these things for nefarious reasons. And so they purposely jammed the GPS signals or did something to the signals to make them less accurate, right? Mm-hmm. But over time, that's gone away. And your phone devices, guys, that you're tracing routes on and you're doing tracks on are so remarkably accurate within literally feet or less than a foot that it's so beneficial for navigation is what I'm saying, because it is so accurate. And like, if you're navigating, like he was saying, in a real cliffy, real sketchy area, bear hunting, for example, we hunt in some gnarly country bear season. Navigating that cliffy stuff in the dark is, you don't even know. You're going along, you're like, it's pitch black dark, and all of a sudden your headlight, it's not reflecting off anything. You're like, well, what is that down there? It can be a little unnerving. And so these routes are really important. But I just wanted to say that the accuracy of the placement of them is incredible with these apps today. So don't discount that and use it to your benefit. You're never going to plan routes and you're never going to pre-plan hikes. That's going to be a waste of time, guys. Because every time you're doing it, you're learning more about distance calculations. You're learning more about how long it's going to take you to spot A and spot B. And here's another tip, guys. If you've got more time than most dudes, go back and look at all your tracks from last hunting season and look at the elevation gains and losses on those tracks and figure out what's your mile per hour rate. Well, I can tell you with me, I've looked at it in detail. With my llamas, I am right about 2.2 miles an hour. In most country, unless it's super steep, my llamas and I, because the llamas, that's kind of their speed. They like that speed, right? Kevin's is probably about 4.5 to 5.5 miles an hour. But mine is like 2. So you can start using that formula, that data from your past hikes, to help you plan your future hikes, is what I'm saying. So I know this stuff all seems simple, guys. And what I'm going to tell you about this course is there's not one thing in this course that's going to be revolutionary, probably. Well, maybe there is a few. But what you're going to see and what you're going to find is it's going to be the death of 1,000 cuts kind of thing, right? You're going to It's going to be one. Oh, that's interesting. That's a good technique. Oh, that's a good technique. Playing using colors for priority. I wasn't thinking about that. I was already using icons, but I wasn't using colors. Okay, that's good. And I certainly wasn't using the star. That's another good point. When you add all these up, you have moved the needle of your success exponentially. I'm telling you,
100%.
like big time move the needle.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
and I
it's
think
not
that's what separates what you're saying before, the 20-80% rule, right? Is like
right.
Death by 1,000 cuts is that the guys doing it successfully every year, they know, like they've experienced they've gone through it, they've made mistakes, they've learned from them. You're putting it all in a package that's going to help people shortcut all these in a way, right? Like that's
right.
Going through all these strategies and stuff and learning this now in February, going through these modules, taking the time to learn it, and then applying it, in the field. It's exponentially gonna help you.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing that people don't. Again, I always like to say I call myself Mr. Obvious sometimes, because sometimes I just like to talk the common sense things, right? That seem so simple, but are often overlooked. Like a lot of the things we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
But let me open your eyes to a simple fact. So people know who Ryan Lampers is, right? We already talked about that. So Ryan hunts elk about like me. We both hunt about somewhere between 80 to 100 days a year. We are lucky to be able to hunt elk that many, or not elk. We're lucky to be able to hunt that many days a year, right? Well, think about that for a minute. So the average, since we're the average Canadian that works as in another job besides the hunting industry, and he's got a wife, he's got kids, he's got 10 days to hunt, right? Let's say he's got 10 days to elk hunt. I feel sorry for you if you only have 10 days, but I know a lot of you do. I'm just kidding. That's how I used to be as well. So you got 10 days to hunt. Okay. Lampers hunts 100. For every year that he hunts, guys, he's got 10 years of experience on you every year.
Oh, yeah.
So in 10 years, he has 100 years of experience. Compared to a person averages. Guys, it cannot be ignored. No. It is so overwhelmingly in his favor that you can't ignore that. So then you're like, well, what does that mean, Mark? You just ruined my whole season when you said that. No, what I'm saying is these are the tools. This is the education. This is the kind of stuff that you got to seek out and find. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you're already taking the first step.
Mm-hmm.
You are taking initiative to cut that learning curve down. You're never going to catch up with Lampers. I'm sorry. Unless you've got that many days to spend chasing wild animals, you're not going to catch up in experience. But what you can do is you can cut the distance down, and you can cut it down a little with increasing your knowledge and expanding your skills and getting better, getting yourself more capable for those 10 days. So when you roll out on day one, you are ready to go from beginning to end. You never miss a morning. You never miss an evening. You never late to a glassing spot. You never leave early, and you never give up early. Those factors are going to change the game for you.
Yeah, 100%.
I hope that makes sense. I like using that example because I think that grounds it for people, right? When they start thinking about it, they're like, holy crap.
Well, it goes back to
it does. And you're narrowing the gap, right? For sure. Because like you said, you never, like, I hunt a lot of the days too. And like, you can't compare what one person's doing to the other. You have to make your situation and make it the best you can with the tools that you have. And this is a great tool to use to make your situation even better.
And some of us have the benefit of, I can drive 10 minutes down the road and I can be into elk. Not a lot of people can do that, percentage wise, compared to everybody else. Doesn't mean it's great elk hunting, but I can tell you 10 minutes from my house, I can get into elk.
Yeah.
Which is a bonus for, you work all day and be like, okay, I got 2 hours, I got 3 hours, I can go out. and I can do it.
See, I can't even do that. I live in Montana and I can't even do that. I'm in the eastern side of now we got elk in our backyard. I mean, I got elk, but there's not very many.
Yeah.
It's not very good elk hunting where I live. So I have to drive 3 or 4 hours. Here I am crying. Right. I'm 3 or 4 hours to hunt elk. Right.
With that story you were telling us earlier about all these elk, we don't feel too sorry for
you.
Yeah, no, whatever, I got you.
Hold on a second, just wiping my tears.
I paid my dues, boys, back in the day. I paid my dues.
Absolutely.
So,
100%.
But what I'm saying is, you got guys like you just said, you could drive. You got guys that got to drive across the whole country. You got guys from Canada that got to come to another country to hunt elk. And you got to make the most of it, right? And I hope that this course kind of helps you lay out a strategy to help you do that.
100%. All right, buddy. Let's move along here. Let's bump a couple down. Let's go down to like some of these last ones here, and then we'll wrap her all up.
Okay, so let's skip the technology tools because we talked about a little bit how to set up the optimal thing, optimal e-scouting as far as tech, equipment wise, dual monitors, blah blah blah, custom markups, and all that kind of stuff. We've been talking about that. So these are the modules that I'm getting ready to redo, guys. As you notice that when you look at this, I've got the Mastering Google Earth Pro, the Gaia GPS, the Onyx. I don't have a Go Hunt one in there yet. Because remember, this is 3 years old. Go Hunt didn't even exist when I built this. And Onyx, to be totally honest, does a lot more now than it did when I built this course. So that's one of the problems with evaluating technology is the minute you evaluate it, it's out of date, like we mentioned earlier. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of great stuff in there, but there are new things that it has that are not covered that need to be updated, and I will. But really the meat of the course, if you want to talk about that, and this is where people really get, these are the most watched modules, no doubt, is the elk finding concepts. And there's not 12, I think of it as 12 features that I look for. And in the course, I've combined some. So that's why there's less than 12. But when I talk about it as a broad spectrum, I'm really talking about 12 things that I look for when it comes to breaking down an area that holds elk. So I go through each one of those modules in tremendous detail here, guys, in this area. Because this is where I feel like a lot of education stuff falls short. People say all the time, I'm not going to say who it is, but I watched a YouTube video one time on elk and fires, and it was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. To be more precise, it was 2 minutes and 38 seconds. And I'm thinking to myself, what a waste of time it would be to watch a 2-minute video on why burns are attractive to elk. I'm not interested in that, guys. I'm not interested in surface level. I want to know why, when, how, what ages, what kind of burns. Are they early season? Are they late season? Are they high moisture content, low moisture content? What's the train? What's the runoff? How old is a burn before elk stop using it? How early do they start using it? What parts of the country are burns more attractive than other parts of the country? Those questions are never answered in 2 minutes. So, for example, that module alone, if you click on that module and you click on part 1, the video, the video itself is 59 minutes. That's the theory. And then when you look at the examples of fire zones, the example video is 55 minutes. So 2 hours, we spend 2 hours, and guys, I do like to talk if you haven't figured that out, but I try not to repeat myself. So it's 2 hours of breaking down fires and why fires are so freaking good for elk. And how do you break them down? What do you look for? The edges, the non-edges, how far into the edge, how far in or out of the edge, what types of foods grow in these fires, what are they keying in on? High moisture zones, how to identify high moisture zones in the fire zone, how to age a fire, how to look if was it a nuclear burn fire that burned everything to the roots, or was it a surface level burn? When's the grass going to come back? When's it not going to come back? The steepness, is it too steep and the runoff is too much where the grass is not going to grow quick? Or is it less, more gentle elevation where the grass is going to grow quicker because the moisture levels are going to be higher? All these factors, guys, I know that sounded like a lot all at once there. It's all there, and it's all fires. The reason I went right to that one, it's one of my favorite, probably not my favorite, but top 3 favorite places to hunt elk. My number
that's
one
huge,
place,
though. Sorry to cut you off, Mark. That's huge because places I've been in places like here in where I am that it's almost desert. A lot of these places, some of these fires have burnt so deep and so rooted that nothing grows back, and you'll not see a living life form in there for years. So understanding the difference between a deep fire and, like you said, a surface fire makes a huge difference. Because, like, obviously, if there's nothing in there, there's not going to be any elk in there. There's not going to be anything in there, right? Some of these fires burn so hot, man. They just they burn everything to ash, like back to the rock.
Well, so for example, I'm glad you said that. Let's just talk about that for example. So I don't know about this area you're saying, but if the terrain, guys, is really steep, right? What happens to the water? It runs off. So it takes longer for that fire to regenerate when a fire is in steep country. But when the fire is in moderately rolling, let's just, for lack of a better word, more rolling in nature, there's a very good chance that if the rains are good that spring, which you can look at the data on the soil moisture, and you're like, okay, we got great soil. The terrain's not very steep. There could be elk here first year. Because these are all things you can employ when you start looking at fires. There's a lot more to look at than just, oh, there was a fire. Oh, there was a fire 2 years ago. I'm going to go hunt elk there. That's not how I approach it. And here's the other thing. When I look at these 12 features, okay, I don't look for fires. Fires are one of the 12, right? I like fires. I think fire zones are good if they're the right age and all the things we've been talking about. So it's a good one, but it's only one. Slope orientation is another one. I like north slopes. So when I can find an area that's got a north for archery, that's got a north slope and it's in a fire, okay, I got 2 of the 12. I love that. And then I find a north slope that's in a fire zone that's got some benches. They're 3/4 of the way up on the slopes. Whoa, that's a bench feature, which I love. That's 3 of the 12. And then when I find that drainage, I find out there's no trail in the bottom of that drain. There's no established trail on the map. You know what I'm saying? In that drainage that's in the fire, that's got the benches, that's got the north slope. So now we've got 4 of my features. You guys get what I'm saying here? What I like to find when I'm breaking elk areas down is places that have 4, 5, 6, even 7 of the features. And when you find those places, I'm almost guaranteeing you. Now, I shouldn't say guarantee. There is a very high likelihood that you're going to run into elk in that general area somewhere. If it's got 7 of the 12, you're in the money. I've never found a place that has 12 because there's too many of the things that don't go together. For example, one of my favorite places to hunt elk is beetle kills, but they are very complicated. And one of the reasons I like them is because most hunters don't know how to deal with them. Because what's the worst kind of beetle kill there is? A 10-year-old beetle kill, 12-year-old beetle kill, right? Because all the timbers, where is it at? On the freaking ground.
Yeah, blowdowns.
And it's terrible, right?
Yeah.
The elk don't even like it when it gets that bad, right?
No.
But they love it in the early stages. They love it the first 3, 4, 5 years. Why? Because all the pine needles have come off the pine trees and the sunlight is penetrating like never before. So the grass that grows in a beetle kill is so incredible sometimes that it's waist deep. And what happens is the elk get into these beetle kills that are early stages, and they've got security too because they still got trees standing. So they've got a little bit of shade. They got protected visibility. They've got thermal sun protection, and they've got an unbelievable amount of feed. And if you get the right terrain, right, and let's say it's the right steepness, then you're able to glass into these beetle kills because there's no pine. The view is better. So when you get the right beetle kill and you've aged it right, and you know how old it is before you march in there, you're money in the bank for a spot like that. Well, how do you do that? It's not easy. And there's only one tool. I know I sound like a broken record, but there's only one tool you can use to determine the age of a beetle kill, and that's Google Earth Pro. Because what do you have to have? You have to have the dates of those images to be able to look at when the beetle kill starts and then do the math. Page back through time. Well, how do you know when it starts? Well, I go over that in this. I show you every stage of all the beetle kills and how to pick them up with aerial photo. The purple color, the brown color. Purple's like, everybody's like, what's that? I'm like, guys, when the beetle kills, trees are dead and they've still got the little branches, but they don't have the pine needles. When the aerial photos give them a bluish hint, it's very unique from a fire. Fire doesn't have it. So there's ways to look at it to do it. But most people shy away from beetle killer because they're like, I'm not going in there, or even worse, guys, what's the worst thing that happens? You drive to trailhead A, you've been looking at your map. You're like, oh, this looks so good. But you're looking at a 2000 image. Yeah. Let's say you only used Onyx. I'm going to pick on Onyx. Guys, this isn't a real example. I'm just making this up. You only use Onyx. You're looking at this spot. You're like, oh man, Kevin's like, oh, this spot looks like money. It's got 9 of the 12 features. There's no place like it. You drive up to your trailhead. You've done all your zones of pressure. Everything is money, right? You pull up the trail and it's dark. You get out because this happened to me. You set up your tent in the parking lot or in the trailhead. You wake up next morning and it's like, what the hell? There's trees on top of trees. It looks like you just stacked up matchsticks. Well, that's not what the aerial photo looks like because the aerial photo is 20 years old. But if you'd have done your work, if you went to Google Earth and you'd looked at all the historical imagery, you would have known what you're getting into. Mm-hmm. And if you'd looked at the colors of the trees and how they were changing and from all these things, right? So I know that's a little bit in the weeds, but beetle kill is 70 minutes of breaking down beetle kills, just beetle kills. And so anyway, we systematically work through these from access points and established trails, which we kind of already talked about, meadows and feeding zones, which how to break them down, how to analyze them, what's a good meadow, what's a bad meadow, what's a transitional meadow, canyons, creeks, and drainages, very important module. What drainages are best? What drainages do they like? Why do they like them? What to look for? Slope orientation, all of that's in there. The zones, the logging areas for fires and logging areas, I bulk together because they're very similar. They're kind of landscape clearing events kind of situations. And then beetle kills are way different beasts than fires, even though a lot of fires are because of beetles, but they have to be treated completely different. Benches and slopes, we talked about that already. Benches are one of my prime features I look for in an area. Elk love bench features, but they don't like all of them. Guys, benches that are below 50%, benches that are not on a north, northeast, northwesting slope are just not as attractive to elk in my mind during archery season as those other ones, right? We go through all of that. Saddles and travel corridors and all the things that go into funnels and connecting tree lines and all that stuff and ridge connections. All that stuff's in that particular module. Glassing identification, got a whole module on glassing. So we're looking at that, and it is almost an hour and a half over finding and locating and isolating the best glassing locations. It's a really big part of a lot of elk hunting. Now, some guys that hunt thicker country, glassing isn't really an option, so whatever, right? but this might apply to your mule deer hunting, applies to all, you know, whatever. It really it's not just elk for this particular module. So if you notice, guys, as Kevin's expanding these, the way I set it up is the first part one is the theory and the principles. It's like my thoughts, my strategies, all the concepts surrounding, let's just say burns, all are, well, glassing. We're in, what are you, oh, you're in the late season one. So theory and principles is part one. And then I take everything we've talked about. And then in part two, I pull it up on the screen and we start breaking down an area and looking for and doing some examples. Usually I do 3, 4, 5 examples of benches and all the different kinds of benches and what benches are better than other benches and why I prefer these benches. I like longitudinal benches and I like staircase benches are my 2 favorite kinds of benches. Well, what does that mean? What do they look like? How to identify them? Do they hold moisture? Do they not hold moisture? How to tell that? So those are all, we talk about it and then we go through some examples. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then we got late season elk strategies. Again, that's more for rifle. It applies to archery too. If you're doing late season, we get into snow analysis. We get into the rut, the different phases, what they're starting to do as the late season approaches. And then I have some of the more technical stuff, exporting and importing and managing all your data. Because like I said, I like to use multiple applications. And if you're going to use multiple applications, you got to start getting a grasp on how to handle all your data, how to back it up, those kinds of things. And then an important one that's becoming important is this webinars and resources module. If you open that one up, like for example, tonight, I'm going to do this webinar tonight. And by the time you listen to this podcast, it's probably going to be in here. So I'm doing a webinar tonight on advanced Google Earth Pro optimization. And I'm going to record this webinar tonight. It's going to be a 2-hour webinar. It's going to be killer. And I'm going to edit it and record it just much like we're doing here with this pod. And I'm going to insert that into this section. So this is where I'm continually adding and building on to the course. You can look at the different ones. Like, for example, I did one on Wyoming. So I was getting a lot of questions on how to look at the Wyoming elk harvest reports. So I decided to do a quick little thing on it, how to get it, where to get it, how to access it for Wyoming. So there it is. And I did a webinar on last minute e-scouting tactics. It was a 82-minute webinar. It's in there. So if you don't make, all my webinars that I do are free, but they're only available after I do them in the course.
Gotcha.
Like, so they're free. The one's free tonight. They're all free, but the recorded version that lives forever is put in here. And I'm going to continually add to that. So
awesome.
Anyway, I hope that makes sense. We kind of skipped over some of the stuff, but
nobody.
It took me 2 years. It took about 2 years for me to write this out. So COVID, as bad as COVID was, it was kind of a blessing for me because I don't know if you guys know what I do for a job. I do have a job, guys. I know it's hard to believe, but we do event production. We produce marathons, triathlons, air shows, whatever, all over the country, right? Mostly in the Midwest, where I'm from, in Missouri. So COVID, what do you think that did to the event business, right? Killed it. It was over. Like it went from 200 events a year to 0 in one day. So when that happened, I was like, I had this time and I'm like, I've been wanting to do this forever, right? And I'm like, I had a lot of stuff already written. And so I dove in and did it. So I spent about 1.5 years. And this is, I need to go back and add to it and I need to tweak a few things, but the information is pretty solid in there, I think, and still is pretty dang relevant for most hunting. You guys have taken some of it. Well, some people have taken more than others. We're not gonna name names here, but
look, hey man, I'm up to 8% right
now. Just from rolling through. Oh man. Okay. Well, I hope that wasn't too long, but
no, dude, that was good. And for the
Awesome.
listeners, you could just go to the website. Mark's got a link up there, and we have promo codes which are in the links to the show or in the show notes. Sorry, so just use those. And Mark, thanks again, man. This is awesome, and this is what I wanted to do because I want guys to get into this stuff and get them in the course now, not in August, because I know. We start talking about elk in August, we start talking about elk in July, and everyone starts getting excited. But if you want to be successful, really successful, you have to start thinking about it now.
Well, here's the thing. You always heard this and now. How do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
And when it comes to hunt, you guys, we spent 2 hours just going through the agenda.
Yeah.
So if you try to sit down and watch this end to end to end to end, without, like Derek said earlier, without like using a second screen and practicing a little bit and looking around for some benches, if you just watch it end to end, you're never going to, I don't feel like you're going to get the most out of it. I feel like the best way to do this course is a little bit at a time as you're working on your plans and just doing it.
Yeah.
Instead of watching the whole dang thing and trying to absorb 30 some hours of information and then going, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start my hunt plan now. I do think it is a good idea to do them in little sections. And like, for example, hunt parameters, you figure out, use that module to help you figure out what your limitations are and start setting up some examples. Like, just go to Trailhead A, doesn't matter which one, and say, okay, I need to file my, oh, that's easy. In 30 seconds, you've ingrained it in your mind. You know exactly how to do it. You know why you're doing it. And now you're ready to roll with that little feature.
100%.
And you can do that with each one and work your way down. And, I know I give people a lot of trouble for skipping around, but there's nothing wrong with that. Now there is something wrong with 4% complete when you've had the course for
8%.
3 years. It's pretty embarrassing, I think, for Kevin at this moment. So that's not a very good testimony.
I can guarantee Derek's is not at 8%. I know that much.
Well, I could look Derek's up right now if I wanted to, but now I do not go in. Guys, I've got way more to do than to go in and start analyzing individual accounts and see what they're doing.
Then little frowny face emojis
Just
and stuff.
calling them out on Instagram.
Yeah.
Maybe I should
do your homework.
Maybe I should start doing some screenshots of, look here, I just looked up Kevin and he's at 4% completion.
Start course shaming everyone.
Yeah.
Getting course shamed. That's funny. Okay, Mark, that's awesome, buddy.
Okay.
We're going to wrap this up, and it's bear season soon. And like we were talking, we want to get you back on and talk bears here. So,
there's so much of this, guys. A lot of people say, well, I'm not an elk hunter, I'm a mule deer hunter and or whatever. Of course, a lot of this stuff doesn't apply, guys, right? But there's so much stuff that does. The route planning, the glassing, the parameters, the developing the actual strategic hunt plan. So you're going to get the most out of it, obviously, if you're an elk hunter, but don't discount the fact that there's a lot of things in here that apply to all big game, right?
Yeah.
And I am working on a bear course, and it's a beast. It's been 2 years in the making as well. And part of that problem was I got Lambers as a partner, and he never stops hunting. Like I mentioned, the boy won't do any work. And so, once I get him actually doing something, we might actually get it done.
Awesome. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap this up. Pete and Derek, we'll see you guys later. Okay, thanks again, Mark.
Guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
A life that has the stories to back it. A life to be proud of. It's a Winchester life.
Yeah, baby. 6'8" Western. Oh, mule deer, baby, right there.
Tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.